Let's begin like this.
I think we need to remember that Kenya is a free market economy, and free markets are the most beautiful thing ever invented. And the moment you start tampering with price, you know who suffers? The customer. So if the customer is, if the Legislative Assembly continues pushing the narrative that pricing caps is what the market needs, what they've done is they've basically taken away the ability of that consumer that they think they're protecting from accessing finance. Why? Because then it won't make any sense to do business in Kenya, and we'll all move, right? And this has happened before. When the
Something is brewing, and that is the CBK Amendment Bill 2020. See, under that, it says that now the CBK is going to be given the power to regulate digital lenders in the country. Now, the Digital Lenders Association of Kenya, and that's the CEO, Mr. Kevin Mutiso, are saying, well, legislation is welcome. But then I think they are already smelling a rat. But in some sort of way, they know why we are calling for this regulation. They know exactly what the CBK has been calling for time and again for the digital lenders in the country to do. Price capping. That's the point there. And that's what he's saying, that, well, we've gotten out of the country before, so if this regulation is going to settle on price capping, then, well, we can leave, we have left before, but then you wonder, does that man up there care really? Because we do know, as we got into the COVID-19 pandemic, the digital lenders in the country were denied the power to list you any CRB across the country. And if you remember what Njoroge said, he said that these are Shylocks. So until they are regulated, and we hope now that we're going to see exactly what is going to be of the CBK bill, that's 2020, exactly what it's going to say, but then you do know what is exactly saying, that they have to operate, they have to be seen as banks in the country. Good. Other than that, therefore, let's look at exactly the area or the industry in which they are touching this morning. Well, I want us to start with the annual average of registered mobile money accounts in the country. And you can actually see that from 2017 to 2020, that's where we are. And if you look at exactly what this means, that's why we're having headlines of the likes of Fuliza now, with Kenyans having borrowed upwards of 260 billion, because this number does support that data that we're getting from the CBK in how Kenyans are utilizing this mobile money. The same thing, if you look at mobile transactions again in the country, you're going to see the same trend this morning. If you could actually change to that data this morning, Witchy, if you can. All right, mobile money transactions in 2020 as well, and you can see exactly this period between March all the way to July, and this is a trend that we've actually kept on to. It's going to reflect the same thing, that most of the economy is now online, and that is exactly a factor that we can also attribute to the coronavirus pandemic, meaning that yes, you can't operate without proper regulation. Because at the end of the day, majority of the economy is there, and you've actually put in proper legislation to see to the pushing of the economy towards that area. In that sense, that's what we're crying for. So, whichever way it's going to look, are still yet to be seen, but we do know that it is in the works. It's been given a nod to go through. Now, we know it's going to go to public participation stage before it gets back to the House for tabling and a vote. And this is bound to be one of the biggest financial services sector decisions this year from the National House in what is going to be the new CBK bill, the new CBK Amendment Bill 2020, that is supposed to formalize digital lenders in the country and also talk about what has been the bigger elephant in the room, with some of them going up to upwards of 300% in terms of annualized interest rates that they're charging you on those quick monies that they're disbursing to you. Let's talk debt. But then when we talk about it, we have to look at it from a different perspective. Public debt, how has it been? Good. That's exactly where it stands. And if you look at that data, then, well, it's a known fact that we have been rising in terms of that public debt all the way from 2013 to where we are right now in a 2020. Fine. But now the question is, how did we get here? And I will take you back a year ago when there was one law that stated that we couldn't borrow more than 50% of our GDP. If you remember, during Mwai Kibaki's era, that's exactly what we went through all the way to last year, when we changed that number into an absolute figure, 9 trillion. What would you expect that there was going to be some sort of uproar within the economy as to why we had that absolute figure? But then we didn't say it. But now the budget committee, that's the PBO, is actually now advising the National House again to go back to that law that we ran away from, that stated that we can borrow 50% of our GDP. But they're not exactly saying that. What they're saying is that indeed we should get back to a law that states that we have to borrow in relation to the strength of our GDP. Question this morning is that weren't we there? Weren't we there before we revised the law to saying that we have to borrow all the way to 9 trillion? We were there. That we had a law in place that stated that we couldn't borrow more than 50% of our GDP. We ran away from it. Now that we need to raise that debt ceiling again, the budget committee is now saying that, well, the National House has to sit and then come up with a way in which our debt has to be in relation to the GDP for the country. Why though? Weren't we there? And what is special this time though? We talk about it this morning. Well, other news that you're waking up to this morning is now Equity Bank has secured some sort of loan that is supposed to go to MSMEs. And these funds, they're saying, are going to be directed to the smaller businesses within the economy. Let's look at exactly how the activity in terms of credit has been to the private sector this morning. Good. That's where we are. Well, you can say that it's not exactly where it needs to be, because then if you really look at it, then you're going to see that, wow, it is just shy, a couple of points shy of the double-digit figure that we have been talking about that we need to hit consistently. But that notwithstanding, well, they're saying that, well, they've set aside 75 billion for MSMEs in the country. Remember, last year they also announced 10 billion guaranteed commercial loans to smaller businesses within the economy. Now, these loans will be issued through local banks alongside collateral provided by SMEs, and then also going to give SMEs grants and technical assistance. They want to train 2.2 million SMEs, in the sense that they're not just going to give them this money, they're going to give them technical assistance in realizing what they're calling a rebound from the effects of the coronavirus pandemic. Interesting though, because Ipsos did do a survey as we started this month, and they're saying, well, Safaricom is the most preferred brand in the country by women. Interesting. And they're saying, well, it's followed by the likes of Oleza sanitary pads, who come forth in that order. But it's interesting though, because if you did the same survey and then say, is Safaricom also the most preferred brand by men? Chances are, well, the finding was that 69% of women play a critical role in a household purchases. That's why they say Safaricom is interlinked in that. But when you control 99% of business-to-business transactions in the country, why not? I would like to thank you for men. 20146. Your SMS line at Metropol TV across all your social media platforms. Our 2 hours should begin right now.